I agree with you. Justin, the words, I mean, obviously as a psychologist, you've got to be really careful with what you say. And we work a lot, through our training as psychologists and psychotherapists specifically about what words to use. And as a therapist, one becomes very sensitive to the reactions of one's patients and whatnot, in terms of vocabulary use. And it's really important actually to try and pick up what words, if I'm talking psychotherapeutically, what words the patient's using, and then being able to adjust what I'm saying, what I'm trying to get through to this person in their words as well, which is quite a nice sort of trick to do if you want to get somebody on your side, and get buy-in from somebody is to figure out what words they're using to describe themselves, the issues that they're going through, the situation that they're in. So a lot of effort went into comeback to try and keep the vocabulary positive through the injury recovery cycle. So we talk about injury recovery, not just injury. It's not just the injury cycle, it's the recovery cycle. For example, the recovery mastery group, when I named that, I really thought about, well, what are these players actually doing? What do they want to get out of this group? They want to recover, first of all. And second of all, they want to master something. It's an opportunity, the injury cycle, to master something that perhaps you haven't thought about before. Get to know yourself a little bit better, because there's going to be confrontation through the injury recovery cycle. So most of the vocabulary that we use is very specifically designed around understanding where you've been from the injury, what happened, what things were like even before the injury happened, what the diagnosis perhaps actually is. That's a big part of the information gathering stage. And then once you're through that, we focus very much on what does it mean to the person to recover? What is it that they want to get out of this recovery period? Where do they see themselves at the end of their recovery period? What does performance look like now, if that makes sense?
So thinking like I've been involved in rugby quite a bit, and I think it's not necessarily due to rugby, it's just maybe a reputation of like that toughness and that boundaries and like how much they're willing to share. But have you experienced that having, or at least initially, a negative effect where, like say you get 3 or 4 players and they're not going through a great moment, and instead of like helping each other, it's just the other way around?
So 100%, Fernando. So one of the reasons why I discovered, are you asking specifically in that recovery mastery group, or are you asking just generally outside the, within the normal protocols of injury?
Yeah, say within the group, like you get a couple that are going through a tough time, so they see like, that half empty sort of glass, and they start like, I don't like this, I'm not happy with that, I don't like the physio doing this and such, and like I don't see the point in this, like, how like that can have like a pinball effect, and then someone who's like halfway be like, oh yeah, you're right, you're actually right, and then that's 2 or 3 people in a quite vulnerable place, like identity questioning, because they're athletes, or they're no athletes at that moment, so they just like have all these questions that they've never had before, or that they've had before, and they're there again. I think it's unfair. So it should be like a snowball on the opposite side of, I'm not saying it's not necessary part of the process, which probably is, but do you know what I mean? Like something having like opposite of what you're looking for.
100%. So something that I discovered, well, not discovered, I observed in the teams that I played for personally, and also when I was working at the Lions, and I'm currently working with the University of Cape Town as well, running this group, and all the players who get injured, it's part of their protocol to go onto the comeback program. But what I've observed is exactly that, and you'll often, more often than not, you'll get a player or players who are injured who go very quickly into a downward spiral, that negativity of, I don't know what's happened to me, I'm in a bit of shock even, these dreams I had for the season that have all kind of gone up in smoke, I feel isolated, I feel rejected, Suddenly the coaches aren't talking to me anymore as much. And funnily enough as well, I mean, there's a whole lot, I mean, we could really go into depth about this if you wanted to, but I presume in American football, you know, and other teams like baseball or any of the American sports, really, it's pretty much the same phenomenon. But in the rugby circles, the guys are incredibly superstitious. There's underlying
players and coaches, all of them, yeah.
All of them. There really is in any team, there's research on this, you know, that talks about it, that any team, and especially in the professional ranks, there's this ritualistic superstition that creates this very exclusive environment. Anything outside of the walls or the confines of that team is almost it's almost mythical. You know, it's very difficult to let things in from the outside. The team becomes an entity in itself, and within that team, you've got these superstitions that they sort of permeate through all the time in the team dynamics. And I used to, you know, through my studies and whatnot, I remember when I was thinking about these things, I remember that at Biarritz, for example, if somebody was on crutches, you know, nobody would go near that person. If there were crutches in the physio room, and it became a joke, you know, but there's a lot to understand with jokes and the way we use humor, etc. But people would kind of, you know, they'd pick up a crutch and sort of lean it against somebody, and the guy would freak out. You know, you get rid of that thing. Like, I don't want to be anywhere near, you know, crutches. I don't want to be anywhere near anything that represents an injury as such. And although it can be fun and games, and these superstitions sort of play through the team in that way, what happens is when players are actually injured, there can definitely be this subtle, until not so subtle, separation of that person from that team, which can be quite palpable. And one of the issues that these injured players have is that deep sense of isolation. Yep. You know, that they almost isolate themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, in large part because they don't want to be seen as, you know, contaminating this entity that was there before. And if this gets left unchecked, and it often does, more often than not, it actually is left unchecked by the coaches and medical staff and whatnot, because they've got other things that they're worrying about, thinking about, you know, and these players are left to their own devices. And like Fernando said, it takes one powerful figure who's injured in that team, and that negativity can spread faster than you could ever imagine. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen it yourselves. So part of the comeback program, well, the recovery mastery group program, shall I say, it was designed around this phenomenon. So that we could create a group within a group. So these people who felt somewhat isolated, who felt, you know, that they were teetering on the brink of negativity, etc., they had somewhere to go, which unburdens the team management, coaches, etc., from that burden of care, because that's essentially what players are wanting when they're injured. You know, they want the coach to come and say, you know, how are you doing? Just one little sentence,
right?
You know,
right? Like, oh, is it a saying over there for you guys too? Like, can't make the club in the tub, like things like that.
100%, yeah, 100%. And the thing is, the coaches know this. You know, they do know it, but at the same time, like I said, you know, there's stresses that come with the professional game and the amateur game and whatnot. You know, they're thinking about things that they're thinking about game plans, they're thinking about winning, they're thinking about a whole lot of different things.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.